So, the My Studio MM65 is a space-themed 65% keyboard with a Macropad built into the side of it. But is that enough for you to consider spending upwards of $300+ on it? Well, let's see. The 3 reasons why you should consider buying the MM65 are: 1. Obviously the Macropad, right? If you do need a Macropad, you don't need to really clutter your desk with like another product or another USB cable running through. Number 2, the MM65 has a very clean, classic sound that require like no foam or modifiers to really achieve, right? So it's an acoustically strong keyboard. Number 3, even in the worst case scenario setting, the MM65 is a flexible, comfortable keyboard to type on. So those are 3 benefits. Now, I did run into a few quirks that this keyboard has. They may convince you otherwise, so maybe not buy, right? 1, the design theme of the keyboard is a bit confusing. I know that like design is subjective, but I did feel overwhelmed by all that was going on with this keyboard. Plus, it's on the taller side. Number 2, the sound. Wait, you just told me that sound was one of his strong suits. Well, I'll show you why later. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. So I decided to test out like a little bit different kind of a review format. So kind of give you some critical information right off the bat, and then you could focus on the areas that interest you as you watch the rest of the video. But it won't be like the standard, let's cover every aspect of the keyboard kind of video with this one. So let me know in the comments below if you like this format or not, or maybe I should kind of mix it up depending on the content itself. Anyways, we are looking at the MM65 today by My Studio. Yes, a keyboard with the Macropad built in. Let's just kind of straight get into the points of the 3 points, right, that I felt was compelling enough for you to consider buying this keyboard. So the first one, right, being the Macropad. What is a Macropad, you ask? Well, typically it's like an extra keyboard accessory that sits next to your keyboard that has more keys. Well, that is what it is, so don't ask me any more questions. Fine. Macropad is a small keyboard with programmable keys that you can set to like anything you want, right? So like hotkeys for a program or shortcuts or actual macros. It helps you to be more productive. You could also use it for gaming too, right? The difference is that the MM65 has it like conjoined to it, so it's supposed to be convenient. So at this point, you're probably thinking, so it's a regular 65% keyboard with a Macropad attached to it. Well, bluntly, yes. However, consider that you have one less thing on your desk and the whole less cable thing. It's a cleaner way to kind of execute the whole entire thing. So the second reason we were talking about before was like the sound of the MM65. Okay, so as long as you build it right, it's like the keyword here, meaning you follow the instructions, the MM65 is a fantastic sounding keyboard. Check it out right here. The keyboard came with 3 different plates and a big foam pack. The foam pack, it's actually pretty normal for keyboards these days, right? Out of all the options I tried, I think going with the standard aluminum plate and absolutely no foam, no fillers of any kind, the MM65 sounds great. A classic, well-designed sound. Paired with Sillyworks linear and some PBTFans bow keycaps, it actually has a little bit on the clackier sound profile, but very vibrant. It has that higher end keep sound in my opinion. Now, the final reason why you should consider spending your hard-earned money, it's not even cheap, right, on the MM65, the typing feel. So the MM65 has the option of going with like one of the hyper flex cut FR4 plate and also like the flex cut PCB as well. But even in the worst case scenario condition, like no flex cut aluminum with no flex cut 1.2mm thin PCB, the MM65 has a nice amount of flex and bounce thanks to its silicone gasket mounted structure. So it's a comfortable keyboard. So those are the 3 solid reasons why you should consider buying this keyboard. And if it's convincing enough for you, you can just stop right here and join the group buy. But as with everything, there are some reasons why you may be like, nah, I'm gonna pass. Before we go into the detractors though, a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is an online service that helps you print PCBs, do 3D printing, or even CNC machining. If you're an aspiring keyboard designer or whatever else designer, you can take your design and simply upload it to get something made quick. Or, if you have the source code for a PCB that you already have and you need a replacement, you can also get that done as well. They can handle all types of PCBs from your simple single-layer designs to multi-layer stacks. Beyond PCBs, if you want to try making your own case, PCBWay can machine that as well. Now, a very exciting new service that PCBWay offers, OEM. Instead of just making a single component, you can actually task PCBWay to be an OEM manufacturer and make the whole thing. They can do anything from PCBs to CNC cases to even assembly. And using global manufacturing, they can offer very competitive prices. For a limited time, PCBWay is offering additional coupons and promotions for Christmas. You can also participate in the free Christmas prototype event to get another $20 off your order. Check it out. And we're back. Now, why should you not buy this? Firstly, I know that design is very subjective, right? But I felt a bit confused by some of the choices my studio decided to take on this keyboard. So it's more of a theme issue. Okay, so the MM65 is a space-themed keyboard, hence why it has the solar system on the bottom, which is nice. On the side note, right? While we're on the subject, is Pluto a planet again? Like, I mean, it was a planet and then it wasn't a planet and now it is a planet again? Come on, let's make up our minds, right? I digress. So, space. I guess the Shiba Inu in a spacesuit also confirms that. But then you also have this little bit right here, right? This piece right here, it's modeled after like a muzzle loader of a gun. And then it's also, you can get that in titanium, which is, it's cool, right? Titanium's a nice material. But space and gun. Now we move back to the keyboard, which in my opinion, the best part of the keyboard, the back of the keyboard. You got this PlayStation controller button theme going on here. Is your spaceship controlled by a PlayStation controller? I mean, OceanGate tried that with the submarine and we all know what happened there, right? So, and finally, you got the My Studio logo, My Studio huge logo back here, and then the slogan on the inside. Like, what does this even mean? I don't think it has much to do with space, civilization, time. So we got space, we got a dog, we got a gun, PlayStation, and something about civilization. Don't get me wrong here, the rest of the keyboard, especially like the machined edge, it's fantastic, it looks good. However, I feel that My Studio can kind of simplify and maybe consolidate some of these themes to make this keyboard be more whole. It's also like 2 centimeters tall, which means that even with the wrist rest, it does kind of poke out a little bit, so that's something to consider. And finally, the last reason why you may not want to consider the MM65. Take a listen. Yeah, that is pretty bad. The keyboard has a very interesting top and bottom split structure and has it was designed to rely on force brake to control the resonance of the upper case. Like, it comes detached though, and like this, right? And if you miss it, you're in for a rough time. In my opinion, if it was designed to rely on it that heavily, I think it might just be better as a permanent attached feature to the case, so you don't have someone building it and having a panic attack. And so you know what? It's something that you could easily fix. But God forbid you lose these little stickers, you're not gonna have a good time with this. All right. So after all this, right, the 3 positives, the 2 somewhat of a detractors, what is this MM65 all about? Well, it's a lot of different things, in my opinion, to a lot of different people. Well, it does have the Macropad, right? It has a visually handsome keyboard with good features. Do you like Shiba Inus? What about Pluto? Well, the keyboard is actually pretty flexible, even with absolutely no flex cuts and a stiff plate, like worst case, right? Oh, it also sounds pretty good, as long as you get the force brake on there properly. Let me leave you with this. That last little paragraph, that pretty much sums up the keyboard. There's a lot going on with it. The MM65 is a good keyboard, don't get me wrong. It does pretty much everything a keyboard should do well. But the keyboard does have a lot of things going on. I feel like the ideas are out there, it just needs to be brought in and kind of streamlined. Like the themes and designs and variables and all that stuff, right? Sometimes you can get lost in it. And the pricing is around $300 to $350 expected, so it's definitely a solid mid-high range keyboard. But you do get the features and the performance of something in that price range. So, and one last thing, The Macropad obviously is not a standard keyboard, so you probably need to pick up some blanks, or maybe you have a collection of artisans to fill this thing out. Otherwise, you'll end up with an odd assortment of like numpad setup like what I have here. So just saying. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more content for you in the future. And let me know if you like this format or not. Thanks.